Hey guys, this is Ryan with Momma on Mission, and today I'm joining in a super cool collab with Leilani over at Living with Eve, and this is the Homeschool Styles collaboration. So if you are new to homeschooling, you have probably figured out that there are lots of different styles of homeschooling, and that may not be something that you realized was a thing until now, but hopefully this playlist can help you figure out what those are and kind of what they look like. And so I am going to be talking today about classical homeschooling. If you check in the playlist down below, you should see a bunch of other different types. I think we have like 7 or 8 different types. And you will have a homeschool mom talking to you about each of the different types. So make sure you check out Leilani's channel and also check out the playlist down below. So I think classical education can kind of get a bad rep, and I think it's because it is slightly intimidating. It was to me, for sure. It felt like just a lot to try to take on, and it kind of left me feeling overwhelmed and confused as to why you would want to do so much work. And then as I looked into it more, I saw the purpose of it, and I saw that it really wasn't as much work as I thought it was. It's just when I first looked into it and saw, 4-year-olds singing a song of the timeline of the world from creation to current day, I was like, why? Like, isn't that a little much? And then, seeing 6th and 7th graders mapping the world by hand, like, why? What are we doing? But I now see that it is important, that it has its place, and that it's not as crazy as it sounds. So just as a side note, just so you know, true disclaimer, I am not 100% a classical homeschooler. I tend to lean that way, and I would say I'm 70% classical. I don't know. I don't really have a name for what I am, so I guess you would make me eclectic. But I am not the guru on this. I have not read all the books. So just a disclaimer. But just a little background, classical education was developed in the Middle Ages, and it was popularized during the Renaissance. So this has been around forever. Even though I hadn't heard about it, it's been around forever. And it's kind of the one-room schoolhouse approach, where you can basically teach the same thing to a wide range of kids, but then take it deeper with the older kids is kind of the point. And the main basis for classical education is called the trivium, or the 3 stages of learning. And these have different names. The first being the grammar stage, which is what most people call it. I've also heard it called the concrete learning stage. And this is like that early elementary age, so like 4th grade and under, where you are basically just giving them core knowledge. Obviously, we want them to be able to read. That's kind of a given that you want to start fairly early. And you want to start them on their math facts and math basics. But with classical education, typically you also want to get them in on memorization and repetition for that core standard of knowledge. So this is what got me when we first started looking into doing memory work and stuff, which I'm a huge proponent of now. But I was thinking, why does my 5-year-old need to tell me some random history fact from the 1500s? Why does my 5-year-old need to know random geometric equations? Like, I didn't understand that. But their basis is, if you get these ingrained in them at a young age, where they at least know the wording, they know what the core base of something is, then later on they can go and hang things on those pegs. So it's like little memory pegs on a wall. And then as they get older, they can hang things on those pegs, and they can know, oh yeah, I remember hearing something about the Revolutionary War. Well, now here's more stuff that I know about it. And instead of going and, when they're in 7th grade, saying Revolutionary War and trying to teach them everything all at once, it's kind of a building on approach. So the second stage is the logic or dialect stage. Some people also call it the critical learning stage. And this starts about 5th grade. And this is when you start taking those core facts and then analyzing and reasoning with them. So you're not just saying, oh, okay, this happened at this time because of this. Great. You're sitting there going, okay, why did this happen? And you can really start comparing and contrasting and asking questions. So you can start forming your own conclusions and educated opinions on things. And then both of those are building up to the rhetoric stage, or the abstract learning stage. And this is where you take everything you've learned and you've not only analyzed it and questioned it and compared and contrasted it, but now you're going to take these ideas that you formed and you're going to express them to someone else. You're going to have an educated debate. You're going to write persuasive essays. And so the third stage is not so much like you've acquired all the knowledge by this stage. You're just trying to figure out how to be a good communicator of knowledge. And you may think, well, if you're not going to be a teacher, why do you have to be good at communicating knowledge to other people? And that is because every job title you could have, you're going to need this at some point. So this, in the rhetoric stage, they talk a lot about, or they learn how to write essays, like I mentioned, how to speak in public. They start talking about accounting and engineering and politics, in economics. And that is because they are trying to get them, the whole point of classical education is to know how to think. And that sounds kind of silly, like thinking is just like something you do. But really, they want you to love learning, to know how to learn, and then once you've learned something, be able to use it. So this teaches you how to think and how to apply knowledge. And another thing that classical education is known for, which is also rather intimidating, is Latin. And again, I was like, why does my 5-year-old need to memorize Latin? I don't understand. But our language, the English language, is, after you get past that phonics stage where you know the sounds and everything like that, the other harder part of our language is Latin based. And so our longer words, you can break those up into little sections that basically have little Latin words in them, and you can see what that word means just by being able to do that. Also, all of our modern science is done in Latin, has Latin words. Same thing with law, government, logic, theology. Knowing Latin will get you very far in any of those paths. Also, Latin is extremely helpful for English grammar. It makes it make a lot more sense. And it helps you to be able to learn any other language fairly easily. And beyond all that, it is very, 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 very good for your brain to learn Latin. And I know this just because I'm learning along with my kids. And like, I don't know, I just can feel it like stretching my brain and getting me to use parts of my brain that I didn't have to before. I'd never tried to use before. So if you are looking for more information, some very popular books on classical education are, and I have not read all of these or any of them actually cover to cover. I have kind of read the Cliff Notes, not actual Cliff Notes, but like just notes, and kind of skimmed through them. But these will definitely give you a good start. The Well-Trained Mind by Jesse Wise and Susan Weisbauer is basically a how-to. If you've already kind of set your mind on classical education, this will kind of give you a step-by-step how to do it. But then Susan Weisbauer also wrote The Well-Educated Mind, which teaches us as parents, as adults, how to start thinking in this manner. And then also there's The Core by Lee A. Bortons, I think is how you say your last name. And this is closely linked to CC. I think it is required reading for like CC tutors, if I'm not mistaken. And then the liberal arts tradition is by Kevin Wayne Clark and Revi Scott Jane. And then Douglas Wilson has written several books, which I highly recommend him. I haven't read any of his education books yet, but I read some of his theology books. But probably one of his more famous ones is Recovering the Lost Tools of Learning. And so those are kind of a good place to start. But if you just Google like books on classical education, I mean, the list is like a mile long. You'll find something. And I just thought I would give you a few names of classical curriculum that is out there so that you can kind of look into that if you're curious of how it kind of looks when you actually like open up a book. So there is Veritas Press, Memoria Press, Claritas Publishing, and The Well-Trained Mind. And all of these are very different in kind of how they present their material, whether it be online or in bundles or subject by subject. But those are just kind of a place to start. And out of those, we use Claritas Publishing for our memory work. And again, memory work is where you hang those memory pegs to hang other stuff on later. And so there will be a history sentence, a science sentence, a geography sentence, an English grammar sentence, a math sentence, or it could be like a skip counting type thing. There will be either a Latin conjugation or a Latin translation of some sort. And then not all memory work has this, but in Claritas they have a hymn, verse, and a section of scripture to memorize. And then we also use Well-Trained Mind for a lot of their language arts and history. And that is where Story of the World comes from. So this is just skimming the surface of what classical education is. But basically what you need to know first off is that it is all about teaching your child how to think and going through the steps of learning, analyzing, and then delivering knowledge to others. So, and if you would like to learn more about the Charlotte Mason style, which classical education and Charlotte Mason education are pretty closely linked because they are both very literature and language based. So I do a little bit of Charlotte Mason too, but I will link Christy's channel up here. I believe it is One Blessed Mess, and be sure to check hers out and learn all about Charlotte Mason. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.